Please welcome GitHub Senior Vice President of Technology, Jason Warner.
Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all here at 9 a.m. for a developer conference. It's quite a good turnout. So to start things off right, I figured I'm going to go right off script. And Luke, happy 11th birthday. And this is my son, he's my oldest. He couldn't be here today. But figured might as well share that with 1,500 people and a couple 100,000 around the world. But, you know, this is a different type of a conference, too. I want to ask you all, why are you here today? I know why I'm here. When I was growing up, I read a lot of comic books. And the folks that I liked in the comic books were always the ones who were building things, the scientists or whoever they were. And my favorite characters was a very minor character in a massive universe who could literally invent anything. And I mean invent anything, like this person invented a time machine in some prehistoric jungle somewhere, which is probably the most amazing superpower you could ever have. But I didn't grow up around computers. And I remember when I found programming for the first time, senior year of high school, I had that same feeling with software development and developers in general. Like, they could invent anything. And it was that feeling that kind of drew me in and led me to believe that this was what I was going to do for my next couple of decades. But as you do something, that sense of awe and wonder that you first had kind of fades. We all have that experience with things that you know incredibly well. But for me, today feels like one of those special days again. Now, I have the privilege to see what we've been working on for this past year, and we're here to share that with you today. And I hope that you have that same feeling today when you see what we're building. So welcome. Welcome to GitHub Universe. This event has been crafted entirely around you, the developers around the world. This is our premier event. It's not our developer event, it's GitHub's event. It's your event. It's the developers' event for the world. This is our fourth universe now. It's our first at the Palace of Fine Arts. And this venue feels pretty fitting for this today. It was built in 1915 for the Panama Pacific Exposition, which was a years-long showcase of the technology at the time that was going to change the world. So we love that little bit of history for what we're going to do today. Now, because today we're here to deliver part of our vision for the future, we want to share it with you in grand GitHub spirit. We want to do it with you all here today. So we're going to talk about the future quite a bit today. We've got an hour and a half on this main stage. But right now, we want to get caught up on where we are today and how we got here. So let's talk about what we've done together. So, as you all know, GitHub has celebrated its 10th year anniversary. It's a decade is a long time in tech, as you all know. Trends come and go, fashion of software changes all the time. But I believe that these past 10 years have been some of the most transformative in tech. I don't know, what were you all doing 10 years ago? What were you programming? 10 years ago, as I mentioned before, I had just become a new dad. I was writing lots of Java code, not JavaScript. I was trying to convince some of the largest companies in the world to actually adopt SaaS software, to use cloud computing, and open source was not this cancer. All three of those topics weren't going well at the time, 10 years ago. Look back on your own lives. What were you doing 10 years ago? What were you programming in? What were the things that you were betting on from a technology standpoint? What trends did you think that were going to take over that aren't even relevant anymore? 10 years in tech is a long time. At GitHub, we've been around 10 years, and we talk about the history of it because of decisions that we've made, but also the future. We could never have known, guessed, or wagered where we would be today. Open source powers the modern economy. All the internet is powered by it. How many large corporations are not just believing in open source and investing in it, but actually like all in on open source? It's been a pretty amazing change in just 10 years' time. But what else has happened? I mentioned Java. Well, it's now JavaScript. half of the world is trying to outsource their software development instead of understanding that that was their competitive advantage. And the most amazing change, I think, in the past 10 years is that software developers have become the most sought-after category of employees in the world. That, to me, is one of the most remarkable changes in the past 10 years. There are more software development positions open at large auto manufacturers than there are mechanical and industrial engineers. There's more lines of code in my microwave than the Apollo 11, and I kid you not, I looked this one up. So the modern world is run by software. But as we said, it wasn't always this way. And GitHub launched in 2008, at a time when technology was just starting to connect people around the world. It was doing it in new and interesting ways, and it was trying to challenge norms at the time. So we have our founders. We got Chris Wanstroth, PJ Hyatt, Tom Preston Werner, and Scott Chacon to thank for their belief in the transformative nature of code. But more than that, developers, and developers working together around the world, just not in one city or one office, but around the world, what they could do to change it. So launching GitHub when they did represented a shift in how we think about affecting real-world change via code and software development. So now I want to actually walk through some of the 10-year history of what we've been doing. So as you know, GitHub launched in April 2008. We've tweeted about this a bunch. First line of code is out there. It's a pretty remarkable story. But we never really understood what we were doing at the time in all likelihood. You can see things in retrospect and look very smart, but honestly, most people don't actually know how big something is going to get. At launch, we also launched with an API, service hooks, and webhooks. From the very beginning, it was important that this could be connected to all of the other tools at the time. And at the time, the two predominant tools that connected to GitHub were Campfire and Lighthouse. Anyone still use Campfire and Lighthouse around here? Tools changed quite a bit. And the first version, here's a fun fact about the first version of the API for GitHub. It returned a YAML type. Imagine doing that in 2018. And from the very beginning, other companies around the world, like Travis, had started to hook in and connect to GitHub to do things that they wanted to get done with this. In late 2010, we launched this version of pull requests, mostly as you all know and love today. We had a version of pull requests just before this one, but this was the new version of pull requests, 2.0. This was probably about the time that social coding really came into effect on the platform. People really started to have conversations around code. And the first pull request represented that step to making code infinitely more approachable for people. Anybody can have a conversation around code. Today, pull requests are the gold standard of code collaboration. Early on, too, we realized that we needed to work where you all worked. Not all of you worked out in the open. As I mentioned before, SaaS software had not taken hold as it does today in the world. So we needed to meet you where you were. So we launched GitHub Enterprise. We built GitHub Enterprise as a way to run GitHub wherever you needed it as software developers, to take excuses off the table for corporations to be able to use it. GitHub Enterprise represents a promise to developers around the world that we will make it possible to use the world's best development tools wherever you are. Of personal interest to the co-founders and early GitHub employees was a hackable editor. Now, everyone knows Atom. We've got over 2 million active users on Atom. It's a very successful open source project. But what I think is most remarkable about it is that at the time, it set off an editor's arm race. And now you wouldn't have things like VS Code or even some of the IDE integrations that you have today if Atom didn't come out. And in fact, the hackable nature of Atom was so revolutionary at the time that it caused other things to happen, what you'll see here in a minute, with Electron. We pulled Electron out of Atom. Electron was actually what we call Atom Shell when it first started, and it was the basis of how we built Atom. It was all based around web technologies that the founders and early GitHub employees were using to build GitHub of that time. And today, Electron is such a popular open source project and a foundation for most of the desktop applications that many of us use every day that it's now changed the way many people around the world work. If you don't know, which I think most of you probably do, Atom, GitHub Desktop, Visual Studio Code, Skype, Figma, Discord, Hyperterminal, Insomnia REST Client, they're all based upon Electron. Continuing with the theme of changing things up and moving into new spaces, we launched GitHub Business Cloud in 2017. Business Cloud was a new way for businesses to work seamlessly with developers around the world in a SaaS-based way. It had all the same enterprise controls, it had all the same provisioning and user management systems as GitHub Enterprise, and a couple of other things it didn't. GitHub Cloud is, again, a way for us to say, we're going to meet you where you are. We want you all to have access to all the tools that everyone around the world should have access to, and we're going to do the things that we need to do to give you those. 2017 was a rather busy year for us. We also shipped GitHub Apps and a large portion of our GraphQL API. GitHub Apps represented a brand new way for you to develop on GitHub. It had much more granular controls and permissions. It gave you access to repositories, only the ones that you need to do, not OAuth style, just on the org or on the account. It was a much more modern way of working. And in fact, we've been using GitHub Apps almost exclusively internally with the GraphQL API to develop almost everything that you're going to see here today. Two other things we launched in 2017. The GitHub Marketplace. If you're going to develop applications on GitHub, you've got to find a way to get them out to the world. And with 31 million developers on GitHub, we wanted to give a venue for people who are developing applications for developers to showcase them. So that's what we did. GitHub Marketplace is a place for all developer-oriented folks to put their code, their software, their projects, their applications out there. Not only that, we thought it was incredibly important that the 31 million developers have a place to go find other things themselves. Right now, most people are installing integrations off the GitHub Marketplace in spaces like CI, CD, even Slack integrations. But we expect that will change over time as more and more applications get developed and pushed into the marketplace. Lastly, and probably one of the more significant things that we released last year, was the security vulnerability alerts. This was the most recent platform-wide service around languages JavaScript, Ruby, and Python, with more to come. But we wanted to make sure that since we sit at such an important spot in the software development lifecycle, there's certain things that only GitHub could do. And we decided we needed to do those things for the entire software development ecosystem. And that was what this represented. We've got to take advantage of the data that we have. We've got to take advantage of the spot that we sit in the lifecycle. So we released this, and we wanted to offer a way for you to know when your code was vulnerable to security incidents, or if there were possible remediations and new libraries that you needed to update. So that's the last 10 years. I think the last 10 years have probably been some of the best it's been to be a developer. Access to tools, access to information. I remember a time when programming before Google was a thing, and those were definitely the dark days of the internet. Developers are, as I mentioned, some of the most sought-after people in the world when it comes to talent. And I think that with the influx of all the open source projects in the world and companies like GitHub, developer tools have hit a curve that they never saw before. And I think that's rather remarkable. And it goes to show the power of what you all do. So today, let's talk about the present here now, too. Let's talk about what you've been doing this past year and where we are today. So as you know, each year we release this State of the Octoverse report. We published that today. You can go see it online. We're going to walk you through some key statistics. This year alone, there have been 1.1 billion contributions to GitHub. So you all have been rather busy. That's pretty remarkable, 1.1 billion. And of note, you're working together across more countries, more projects, to basically create something unquantifiable, which is the community of developers, or dreamers, or hackers, or tinkerers, whatever you all want to be thought of. But you're working together on these things. This year, more code, more issues, more pull requests than ever before. And as I mentioned earlier, we passed 31 million developers on GitHub, the largest connected network of developers in the history of the planet. 8 million new developers this year. This is up from 6 million in 2017. 8 million is more than the first 6 years of GitHub combined. That's pretty nuts. We're a 10-year-old company, and the last year is more than the first 6 years. I find that remarkable. So all you new GitHubbers, welcome. All you old-timers, thank you. Here's a fun fact. We're a San Francisco company that's distributed around the world. However, 80% of all access of GitHub comes from overseas. That to me, shows the phenomenon of what social coding is all about. All around the world, everyone is working together on code. This, I believe, is really what one of the visions for the founders really was. Regardless of boundary, regardless of continent, or even time zone, work on your code together. Keeps our data center group busy and our finance team a little annoyed. You're trending towards 100 million repositories with 40% year-over-year growth on this one. That's nuts. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of repos, pushing a lot of code. That's amazing. This year also, you merged your 200 millionth pull request ever. We're growing at about 40% year over year on almost all of our statistics, and this as well, we're growing 40% year over year on how many pull requests were merged. This year alone, a third of all 200 million was merged. I like this statistic alone because it shows that when you're using pull requests, you're working together. You're having conversation around the code. Changing tact a little bit, what about the future of software development? Who are your coworkers going to be in the next 5, 10 years? 1.1 million students have learned to code on GitHub. We're continuing to make sure that we equip the next generation of software developers with all the tools that they need. So we partner with folks like Heroku, GitKraken, and JetBrains to make sure that the best tools are available. And that includes teachers. There's 20,000 educators around the world using GitHub for free via our GitHub education program. And this is an amazing thing just to give away. You want folks to have access to the best tools. I got into software by falling into it. And I remember falling into the open source ecosystem largely because I couldn't afford anything. That's how I found Linux. And giving software away is a great enabler for people to actually get into this, into the craft, but also to find the best tools, not just what they have access to. Professionally, we have 2.1 million organizations using GitHub. This is across all public and private repositories and includes our on-prem installations as well as our business-hosted and cloud stuff. Again, we're growing at about 40% year over year on this as well. More organizations, more professional organizations are using GitHub than ever before. We can go into much, much more detail on this, and you can see this is all online. There will be a special State of the Octaverse session here on main stage at 1:55 today with Anna Filipova from the GitHub Data Analytics team and Stephen O'Grady from RedMonk. So if you love numbers and what's behind them, come see that. It'll be fun. So I hope you're sensing a theme here, too. 31 million developers around the world using GitHub. You're all doing amazing things, from open source maintainers to enterprises and everyone in between. The theme of Universe is all about building the future. And we've taken the stroll down memory lane. We've seen the state of the Octaverse a little bit, and we've talked about some of the current state. Let's talk about future state. And this is where I think you're all here to see is what we're releasing. So let's talk about the future. And there's 3 things I feel like I can definitively say about the future. First, no one can actually predict the future. But we can be ready for it, and that's largely our jobs as software developers, is to be adaptive and be ready for the future. Second, it's going to involve change. That's the only thing I can actually tell you about the future. But that change is both going to be good, it's going to be hard, there's going to be things about it that might annoy us. But there will be change, so let's be ready for it. And third, it basically involves all of you, but it's really because all of you, because of what you're developing today, what the software you're going to be releasing tomorrow, whatever open source you're going to be doing, you're going to be literally changing the future. And speaking of big changes, let's talk about a couple of the changes at GitHub. So let's talk about one you might have heard about. So we're getting acquired. No applause? Yeah. This, we're pretty excited about this one at GitHub. And we think this is a watershed moment for developer-oriented companies and tools around the world. 10 years ago, everyone's trying to outsource their software development. Now Microsoft's buying one of the largest developer tools companies in the world. This is a pretty remarkable decade of change. And we've been fans of Microsoft inside GitHub now, too, because of the changes they've been making in their open source approach and how they approach community and software development as well. Now, there might be some concerns, but our developer-first ethos, our distinctive spirit, and our open extensibility, that's not going anywhere. That's part of who we are and what made us special to Microsoft in the first place. And while we don't have a close date yet we do anticipate that will close by the end of the year. And as many of you know, open source veteran Nat Friedman is going to be our CEO once that does close. And Nat is here today somewhere. He's probably in the audience. Raise his hand. He might want to stay anonymous because he'll get a lot of bug requests and reports. That's Nat. He has an Excel spreadsheet of all bugs you would like to report. But today is about what we've been building for the last year. And so let's kick that off and talk about the next decade at GitHub. So behind every great company is a great software developer, but more importantly, teams of great software developers working together to do things that are really special. And while the world still categorizes itself in verticals like retail or manufacturing or finance or even healthcare, at the end of the day, they're really software companies, and everyone will talk about their competitive advantages, their software, or their approach to software, or their retention of software developers. And we all know that what makes products special these days? It's all the software. If you think about the phones, the cars, the devices in your homes, your home itself is powered by software. Heck, I have a pair of sneakers that has software in it. That's okay, yeah, someone's jammed software into sneakers. So software is what matters. And you all are the ones writing the software. And we at GitHub, we're focused on bringing the world of software development to everybody. And we want to bring the world's best experience of writing software to everybody. So one of the things with software is that there's still too many challenges. There's too much wasted motion and entropy. There's too much ceremony in software, too many config files, and too many trade-offs. So the result is obviously frustration or friction, fragmented tools and services, lost productivity, which if you have an MBA, what you would say is the worst thing in the world. But we at GitHub, we think about your lost creativity and the spark. We want you to have that excitement about software all the time. And if you're banging your keyboard or swearing at your monitor because of tools and config, it's going to grate on you every day. So we think about advancing the state of the art. We think about how we bring software to its next level. And we don't think about mashing together a whole bunch of disparate or discrete technologies. We want to find a way just to get you shipping. We don't think about just a specific aspect. We think about the entire life cycle. Why do we do that? It's because you all deserve better. You all deserve the best. And there's no code in the world to fix that just yet, because it has to be invented. So we ask ourselves every day, what would the world look like if we focused on the developer experience for every developer in the world, all 31 million of you? What if software development workflows were not disjoint? What if they all worked together? What if developers didn't have to build every single connection between thousands of tools? And this isn't about buzzwords, or this isn't about, again, mashing together technologies to make them work. This is about how you feel when you experience software and the workflows. What you need is a platform that does that for you. What you need is people who care about you and your experiences there. So with over 31 million registered GitHub developers, every time we make a change, we're basically affecting the entire software development ecosystem. Every change that we do goes out to one individual. We're trying to make your life better, but 31 million people are experiencing it as well. So we take that responsibility incredibly seriously, but it's quite invigorating. There is moments of pause when we want to release something saying, what is Twitter going to say about this? And sometimes we do roll back some changes that weren't well liked. But what we really want to do is give you all that same experience. We want to do something that's fundamentally different. So today, we're proud to introduce a couple of new features and products to GitHub. So features that unify the developer experience, features that offer a smarter or more interconnected workflow, and it's all powered by code. So you're going to hear from a lot of folks around GitHub today. They're talking about collaboration, they're going to talk about the business aspects, they're going to talk about security, and they're going to talk about the core underlying platform as well. So to kick that off, I'm going to invite Kathy Simpson, the Senior Director of Product Management of GitHub, up to the stage.
Thank you so much, Jason. Today, 31 million developers choose GitHub for where their software development happens. And over 8 million new accounts were added in the last year alone. And this is really strengthening our commitment to developers and earns us our position as the home for developers. And as developers, we want to solve problems, share knowledge, and together change the world around us. And the open source community on GitHub continues to be the best place to do it all. We're focusing on solving problems for developers, for those who work with developers, and those who build for developers. So when you're in your groove, we want to keep you there. We want to remove any barriers, blockers, and bottlenecks for you and your team. Because we know that there's simply too much effort required to write code, share code, and review code. So we're making a commitment to you. Our commitment is to never give up on improving our product and our platform. Our commitment is to better serve you and the developer community. Now, I know each of us have those small blockers or pain points that take us out of our rhythm throughout the day. Now imagine that pain point, but for 31 million developers who might share that same frustration. That is a lot of lost productivity, effort, time, energy, and money that could otherwise be spent keeping you in your workflow. So that's why this past year, we've been hard at work keeping you as productive and focused as possible. We have shipped hundreds of iterative improvements to our product and our platform. And some of my favorites are on this list, like ignoring the plus and minus markers when you select a diff line. That's a good one. Or resolving a conversation on a pull request. And we are constantly improving our product because we want to better serve all of you. And we're going to keep doing it because we know that you do your best work when you don't have to deal with all of these issues. And that's why today is no different. It's just another Tuesday here at GitHub, shipping the stuff you love. So I want to introduce you to suggested changes. With suggested changes, it's just the latest improvement to our GitHub PR workflow. And it means that authors don't need to copy and paste their code suggestions from reviewers. And you reviewers, you no longer have to branch and make a commit. You can actually just add a suggested change, and the author can accept it with a single click, and that's it. So I want to show this to you in action. Here, Kyle Daigle, who will be on stage later today, he opened up a pull request, and he wants me to review it. He's added a method, and I think he's being a little too clever. I don't know if this is going to scale, so I'm going to suggest he add a randomizer, because it'll be easier to maintain. I'm going to select the line, I give him a little bit of information about what I'm thinking, and then instead of typing out all my code in Markdown, I can actually just click this button, and it inserts the code into my comment. And then I can make my suggestion. And then after I do this, let's actually check this out and see what it looks like for Kyle. So he can clearly see the diff between his original code and my suggestion. And this gives him all the confidence he needs to know that I was right, and he can accept this. So what I love about this is that it removes a lot of the back and forth during the pull request review. And we can actually stay more productive together. So our work here is never done because we know it's often the smallest of ships that have the biggest impact. And so while we're continuing to iterate on our product, I want you to follow along on our changelog and on our blog so that you never miss any of these iterative improvements. Now, GitHub is largely synonymous with open source. But did you know that thousands of companies use GitHub Enterprise and GitHub Business Cloud? And that's in addition to the 2.1 million organizations that are using GitHub to collaborate as teams of developers. But every developer, regardless of where you work, deserves the best developer experience possible. The code that you're writing at your job with your teammates, that code is just as important as the code that you're writing in open source with maintainers. And workflows in open source are becoming increasingly more present in the business setting. But these environments still have their unique needs. You still have to learn Git and GitHub, and you still have to learn your employer's tools and processes. And this all takes time and energy. And that's time and energy that sometimes your businesses don't have. So that's why earlier this year we shipped Learning Lab. Learning Lab is an iterative learning experience to help you learn Git and GitHub and other critical software development skills, all from within the GitHub repository. With Learning Lab, you can learn skills ranging from a basic introduction to Git to how to handle a merge conflict, or even how to get started with your first open source project. And you learn it all guided by the Learning Lab bot experience. And today we're announcing 3 new courses that are available to everyone. And these courses are going to help developers learn secure development, review a pull request, and then how to get started writing your first GitHub app. And we're extending this to organizations with Learning Lab for Organizations. With Learning Lab for Organizations, teams can leverage that exact same interactive learning experience to build custom content that's specific to their policies, workflows, and growth paths. And they do this to help their developers level up their skills faster than traditional learning methods. And as an organization administrator, you can see how your courses are being received by your teams. And it's all available today. So if you want to learn more about how to get up and running with the Learning Lab programs, I encourage you to go to lab.github.com/organizations. So businesses and enterprises leverage GitHub in 2 ways, either on-premises with GitHub Enterprise or with GitHub Business Cloud on github.com. And as businesses grow, so do their teams. And this means that so do the challenges they face. But what's valuable to these organizations is that they're actually able to tap into the knowledge of 31 million developers, 96 million repositories, and over 500 terabytes of data. However, companies using GitHub Enterprise hosted on their own servers are siloed from that data and those communities. And some companies have multiple organizations, which makes identity management of their developers very difficult. So what we want to do is bring on-premises closer to where the innovation happens in the cloud. We want to unify this experience for developers, regardless, or wherever these developers are across organizations, regardless of deployment type. And that's why we're shipping GitHub Connect. GitHub Connect breaks down silos across organizations. It gives developers access to data and communities, regardless of whether they're running in GHE or they're running with GitHub Business Cloud. And it does this all while ensuring that developers remain productive, engaged, and connected to the larger world of GitHub.com. So GitHub Connect addresses 3 common pain points that we have heard from developers and organizations. First, developers need access to private code beyond the firewall. Second, those developers who are coding behind the firewall, they can't showcase their commits on their public GitHub.com profile. And third, as developer teams scale, so do the needs of their administrative tasks. So let's dive into some of these and how GitHub Connect solves them. So developers on GitHub Enterprise, they keep their code compliant and secure, but they're still siloed behind a firewall. So they're missing out on all of that knowledge and all of that innovation from the 31 million developers. But with unified search, developers have been able to search across open source from within their GitHub Enterprise. And today, developers can also search across their private repositories that are on GitHub Business Cloud. Now, developers who are working on GHE, they're reviewing code and comment, or on GitHub Enterprise, sorry. I'm so used to all of the acronyms that my brain is full of acronyms. They're reviewing code and they're commenting and they're making commits. But those contributions, these developers aren't getting recognized for those contributions on their GitHub.com profiles. So with unified contributions, developers who are working behind the firewall can connect your GitHub Enterprise profile to your public GitHub.com profile, and you can begin to showcase your work. And this means that you can fully represent yourself as a professional and as an open source developer. Now, companies maintain different organizations in order to scale their development team's efforts. And they do this also to keep their teams moving fast. But this creates a lot of administrative overhead. So with the unified business identity, administrators can unify multiple organizations in a single account, and this is going to help them improve billing, improve licensing, and permissions and policies. So for administrators, wherever you see an org setting today, you're also going to see a business identity setting. So with this first collection of capabilities through GitHub Connect, we are beginning to bridge the gap between on-premises and the innovation that happens in the cloud. And in the future, we're going to continue to unlock the value of the cloud while still maintaining the control necessary for on-premises. And we're implementing a complex workflow, but in a simple and scalable way, all on a single platform. And that is making it possible for companies to manage software development from one place, one company. And I'm super excited to tell you that this is all available today. With the Enterprise 2.15 release that is available now, you're going to find unified search enhancements and unified contributions. And we're also releasing the unified business identity in a limited public beta. So if you'd like access to that program, I encourage you to talk to your account representative. Now, as developers, we know that we're doing our best work when we're also doing our most secure work. And as GitHub, we have a responsibility to enable this level of security. And that's why we've been hard at work this past year, helping developers prevent the next security breach. And these threats can come in all forms. They can be leaked information, use of malicious code, or malicious attackers. And developers and orgs have to fight these threats in their projects and their businesses. And it can be challenging to stay vigilant and up to date on what the latest new security alert is. And the risks are significant. They can mean substantial financial liability, declines in trust and loyalty, or even test the ability for your business to survive. In 2017, over 1,500 significant data breaches caused major disruptions to businesses, government organizations, and the lives of everyday people. And as organizations continue to invest in innovation, you have to realize that you're doing so in an increasingly hostile and risky world. But what you don't realize is that these security challenges, these are not just challenges for individual CISOs or IT administrators or maintainers. This is a community challenge. And at GitHub, it is our responsibility to protect our users and our community from these threats. And so with the data and the power of the network that GitHub maintains as the most popular software development platform in the world, we can't help but see the opportunity in front of us to enhance security across the entire software development ecosystem through the through the automation of detection, remediation, and tracking security vulnerabilities. We believe that we can be of service in the name of public good, enhancing security for all. That's why last year, we released security vulnerability alerts for JavaScript and Ruby, and why we extended that functionality to Python earlier this summer. We have to take a community approach and a platform approach to security, otherwise we all fail. And it's working. Since we shipped last year, we have sent over 5 million alerts to GitHub users. So today, we're very happy to be shipping security vulnerability alerts for 2 new languages, Java and .NET. And this is all powered by the GitHub dependency graph, which maps how a developer's repository depends on other repositories and projects across all of GitHub. So for all 5 of these languages, we've redesigned the dependency graph and the vulnerability pages. So when you get one of these vulnerabilities, you can click into it, and you can get more information about remediation, and you can confidently take next steps. Now, I know that accidentally exposing a token can be a costly and time-consuming mistake to correct. And this can be things like API tokens for cloud providers, or important services, or even a GitHub SSH key. And this is why today we're excited to announce token scanning for public repositories. This will help developers be more proactive in avoiding security breaches. We really want to ensure that tokens and keys never accidentally get committed and exposed publicly. And so that's why we scan repositories and we search for known token formats. And if one is found, we contact the provider, they'll validate it, contact the owner, and then issue a new token. And we're doing this all automatically so that we can keep your tokens from getting into public repositories and potentially into the wrong hands. And finally, we wouldn't be the platform that we are today if we didn't take a holistic view of security across all of GitHub. So as that software development platform of choice for 31 million developers, we're the only ones who can collect and share information about security across millions of projects. And we're taking a developer-first approach. We're allowing you to consume security vulnerabilities at scale with the Security Advisory API. To power GitHub security features, we're using existing processes to aggregate and validate security advisories. And we decided to make this available publicly to all of you, free of charge for the community. So when you interface with this API, you'll have access to all the vulnerabilities that we have detected. Starting today, all of this data is at your fingertips. It's ready to be integrated into the tools and services that you already use. So for example, if you're responsible for compliance at your company, you can track these vulnerabilities programmatically at scale across your code and your projects. And you can create your own advisories. Our goal is to keep you from solving these problems individually and to continue to invest in our platform so that you do your jobs better. So we just talked about a developer-first workflow and how we're empowering individual developers and teams of developers to learn together, how we're bridging the gap between enterprise and open source, and how we are making security a platform-level service. And it all happens on GitHub, which is the only place it can. So to tell you more about the power and the future of the GitHub platform, I would love to welcome to the stage GitHub's head of platform, Sam Lambert.
Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everybody. Good morning. For 10 years, GitHub has offered all of you APIs to access and modify the world's data. Now more than ever, the biggest companies in software development are integrating their tools with our platform. The past 6 months have been especially busy. I would like to highlight some key partnerships. In July, Google added an integration for Google Cloud Build, a simple way to create fast, consistent, reliable builds across all languages for both containers and non-container artifacts. In September, Microsoft created and added an integration for Azure Pipelines, cloud-hosted CI/CD for Linux, Mac OS, Windows, and with native container support. 2 weeks ago, we announced a new Jira integration in partnership with Atlassian, a faster and easier way to set up and connect Jira to GitHub. And all of these products are available today on the GitHub Marketplace. Over the past several years, we've provided new and better ways to build upon the GitHub platform. With features like GitHub Apps and the GraphQL API, we've enabled more use cases and flexibility than ever before. And it shows. Let's go over some stats. The number of new applications in our ecosystem has grown at the fastest rate yet, 33% year over year. And we now serve over 800 million API requests daily. More than 12 million developers are now using an integration on GitHub. And this one really surprises me. Our data shows us that developers in organizations that have an integration contribute twice as much as developers that don't. It takes a lot of infrastructure to host the home of open source. GitHub.com and the services that operate it run on over 40,000 CPU cores. And we have more than 5.4 petabytes of storage supporting your code and collaboration on GitHub.com. When the world's code is building and deploying from one place, it generates a lot of traffic. Our network edge serves over 100 gigabits per second at daily peak. At GitHub, we say, it isn't shipped until it's fast. We continue to bring you fast access to GitHub by deploying points of presence in Europe and Asia. Now, when you clone your repository, you'll have lower latency and higher throughput. We know more about the connections between code than ever before, how code is shared across our ecosystem, and how repositories depend on each other. We're at the beginning of a journey bringing AI and machine learning into our network, and thus the world of software development. I would like to welcome Omoju Miller, Senior Data Scientist from our machine learning group, to share where our platform will take us in the future.
The universe of data at GitHub is a very exciting place. And we machine learning people love exploring this universe. Very much like space, our universe is made up of planets and galaxies. It's made up of code, metadata, and the interactions between them. Every single dot you see in the visualization of our data universe is a person. Each of these dots represents you, and you, as we're all working together, collaborating on an open source project. As you can see, our data universe is an extremely complicated place, and the machine learning team is working actively to bring you the capabilities to get the insights from this data universe. Right now, you're seeing me explore this data universe. Eventually, I'm going to show up, and you're going to see me surrounded by all the people around me, all the people that I collaborate with, which gets to the point of why we actually do this. It's not necessarily about the code that we write, or the typing, or the compilers. It's about the products we build and the effect that it has on people. People like my friend, Tiffany Ashley Bell. Tiffany is a developer. And a couple of years ago, she was on social media where she learned that the city of Detroit was going to turn the water supply off for a few of its citizens because they couldn't pay their water bills. As a developer, she was deeply moved by this, and she decided that she could do something about it. She reached out to a couple of people, some of whom she'd never even met before, and they decided to build an app, what would later become the Human Utility Project, a nonprofit, civically minded nonprofit designed specifically to crowdsource collaboration and give monies to people so they could pay their water bills. In the early days of GitHub, there were three major things that we were really interested in. We wanted to make sure that we were a developer-first company. We wanted to reduce the friction in the workflows of those developers. And we wanted to work to lower the barrier to entry into software development. 9 years of having all these kinds of data, we decided we were going to form the machine learning team. Last year, the machine learning team user follows data and builds the discovery dashboard. The discovery dashboard allows you to discover open source repositories that might be interesting to you. Open source repositories like Fast.ai, a project specifically designed to make deep learning accessible to everybody. Since then, we've spent the year balancing the tension between iteratively shipping products to you that are data-enabled, as well as doing fundamental research that lets us understand what is possible. We've shifted our focus on focusing on languages. We're focusing on understanding human languages like English, Spanish, my local language, Yoruba, as well as programming languages like Java, Ruby, and Python. One of the most interesting things about doing machine learning at GitHub is often we use GitHub to do machine learning at GitHub. Something like the discovery dashboard shows us all kinds of interesting open source projects around ML that we might want to explore. A few weeks ago, we launched Experiments. Experiments is a window into our applied research. And the reason why we did this is because we have a lot of things that we're working on that are not quite production ready, but we wanted to share it with the world. We want to make sure that we continue building in an open source fashion. We want to have that constant conversation with you. That's why we shipped Experiments. When we think about how we write code today, we think about writing code in an imperative fashion. There's something that I do all the time. There's a function I find myself writing over and over and over again. It's called flatten a list of lists. As an ML person, I have to do this. And whenever I want to flatten a list of lists, I end up thinking about all the things I have to do. OK, I have to define the function. I have to count the list and append them together. Maybe I use a list comprehension. You understand what I'm saying? I have to go through this entire thing in my head and actually write out the code. In the future, with machine learning, with the kind of data we have, we don't have to do that anymore. If I want to flatten a list of lists, I can do declarative reasoning. I can actually just say, flatten list of list, type it, and I should be able to get a bunch of functions that achieves that goal. Through semantic search, that is going from intent, natural language to code. These are the kinds of things that are possible. With semantic search, it allows us humans to move from imperative mode to declarative mode. That means that it is so much faster for me to write my code and solve the problem versus having to fight with my code. Semantic code search is one of those capabilities we're bringing to the platform. I want you to think about not me, but yourself. Think about where you are on this data universe. With the capabilities that the machine learning team is going to be bringing to the platform, I want you to imagine the kinds of things you will build. I look forward to hearing about this. Thank you.
Omoju, thank you. The scale of our network is truly awe-inspiring, and that's why we're here. From day one, GitHub has been a company committed to openness and the belief that open platforms drive increased innovation, which in turn creates choice and opportunity for developers. We are the center of software development. We make it our mission to evolve our platform so that it is accessible for all developers, regardless of the choice of tools, languages, or framework. As a result of this commitment, 31 million developers have been given so much choice for years. We've seen companies solely built on our platform to serve our users with solutions that extend the functionality of GitHub. But developers still spend too much time today and wasting energy configuring workflows. They are also stuck with inflexible architectural choices as new tools and innovative software practices emerge. We've set out to fix that with something brand new, and I'm so excited for this. As a software developer, your workflow is your working life. We want to bring the power of open source and our network into your workflows. The core of GitHub is code. So we knew we had to create a way to build workflows with code. Today, we bring you something truly remarkable. For the past year, it has been our goal to simplify the process of automation with an approachable, standard framework living within a GitHub repository. We want developers to have infinite choice and customization potential. Our job is to delight you, our users. Your job is to delight your users. By enabling workflows as code, executed and hosted on github.com, and supported by an expanding ecosystem of user-created functionality, we believe we will once again revolutionize software development. Together with you, one global community of software developers. To realize this vision today, we are announcing GitHub Actions. Now you can build, share, and execute actions inside containers right on GitHub, all within a few simple steps. I truly believe this is our biggest ship since the pull request. No words can do this justice, so let me introduce you Kyle Daigle, Director of Ecosystem Engineering, to show you the power of GitHub Actions.
Thank you, Sam. I'm so excited to show you GitHub Actions today. Over the past year, while we've been building it, I've been using the feature with the team, and I really think it's going to change your developer workflows. With GitHub Actions, we've created a way for you to build, connect, execute, and share code containers to run your software development workflow. You can use any language to build an action. You can find an action that someone else has already written and use that. And you can represent your entire workflow as code. But the best way to help you understand what's possible with GitHub Actions is to show you. So I've come up with a few examples. My first example, I've created a node module to help celebrate GitHub Universe. It's pretty simple, but I want to make it easy to publish it to NPM as I make tweaks. Now, normally with this, I'd have a set of scripts and incantations I'd have to run on my local computer and share with all my contributors. But with GitHub Actions, we can automate this entire workflow. Let me show you what that looks like. This is my very small node module. It has a few functions that print out various celebrations about GitHub Universe. To start using GitHub Actions, I create a main.workflow file inside of the .github directory. Now, instead of editing this manually, I want to show you our visual editor. This is a GitHub Actions workflow. It starts with two things, a name and when the workflow should run. For the name, I'll go with test and publish to NPM. And then for running, I want to run this workflow each time I push up a tag. I know this is the push event, so I'm going to choose that. We support dozens of different events to start a workflow. With each of these events, we'll add the payload data into the action. You can use that payload to make decisions, and we use it to power a couple of cool GitHub Actions features, but I'll show that to you later. OK, once I've set up the workflow trigger, I choose my first action. In the sidebar, there's a list of open source actions I can choose. Each action here is either an open source repository, an action that's private inside my repository, or an action in a Docker registry. Each action does a particular thing, and they can be used in different ways. So I only want to publish to NPM when I tag a release. So I'm going to choose the filter action that Brandon Keepers, one of our developers, built. It lets me stop a workflow if a particular detail in the payload isn't a match. We only want to process push events if they have a tag. So we'll add a filter and then add the tag command here to ensure that we stop the flow if there is not a tag in the push. And then I'll save my first action. Now, I know that I have a tag. I need to run my test to ensure I'm not releasing a bad build. Every action has a copy of the repository inside that action. Makes it really easy to run tests or take other actions on your code. I'll choose the NPM action, give it a name, and then I'll give it the test argument, which will be passed into the container to tell it to run that particular command. And I'll save this action too. OK, once my tests pass, I actually need to publish this module to NPM. So I'll drag down in the visual editor to create another action. With this action, I need it to publish. So I'll choose NPM again, give it a name, and then I'll add the publish argument. But in order to publish, I need to authenticate with NPM. But we think we've solved that too. Let me introduce you to the GitHub Secrets Vault. With the Secrets Vault, you can store credentials that you need as part of an action. When you put it into the UI, we encrypt it using a libsodium sealed box inside the browser. Then we push that encrypted secret to our servers where we store it encrypted. Then you can tell us which secret you're using in each action. We'll handle things like API tokens, certificates, passwords, sensitive information, keeping it secure in transit until your action needs it. OK, so let me go back to my demo. All I need to do now is add my NPM authentication token into the Secrets Vault. I'll give the token a name, and then I'll simply paste in my NPM authentication token. You'll notice that the checkbox here turns blue, which says that this action is going to use this secret. And that's it. I have a complete workflow. To kick this off, all I have to do is push up a tag to GitHub by tagging the release locally and pushing it. Now, I want to show you the next piece, which is the Actions tab. This tab shows you the status of the workflow while it's running, as well as previous runs. You'll see the first step is filtering for only pushes with tags. That passes. Then I'm going to run my tests. That also passes. Then finally, I push my module up to NPM, and here it is on NPM. But GitHub Actions isn't just for testing and publishing code. We also give you the full power of GitHub Apps by providing you with an API token in your action that you can use to query GitHub's API. If you've ever wished, I know I have, to do an automatic action like delete a branch, put an issue, close an issue, merge a pull request, now you can do that automatically using GitHub Actions. Let me show you how myself, a new open source maintainer, can automate a few best practices of open source projects using GitHub Actions. OK, so this is the first workflow that I've built. For this one, I want to send a welcome message to first-time contributors when they create a new issue on my project for the first time. First, we'll look for the issue event. Then we'll filter for only issues that have been opened. Down one more step, we look at the payload, like I mentioned earlier, to see that the author of this issue is a first-time contributor. In this example, we've decided to use a command line tool, JQ, to look at the payload. And then we can post the welcome message to the user by using a new tool that we've built called GHX. I'm really excited about this, so let me show you what it looks like. With GHX, we've made the easiest way for you to interact with key parts of GitHub's API, like issues, comments, check statuses, and more. It doesn't really work like curling or using Hub, because with GitHub Actions, we have the context and the environment. So you don't need to tell us the API token or what issue that you want to comment on. We know, because we have that payload data inside the action. We can infer all that, and all you need to do is push the data that you want to put into the comment, in this case, a welcome.md file. We'll run this command, and boom, we have a comment. Now, it wouldn't be fair if you couldn't use this on your local computer or your server as well. And so you can use GHX as well on a local computer, but you'll have to pass it the API token and payload that you wouldn't have to on GitHub Actions. OK, so we've set up this workflow to post a welcome message on the first issue of a new contributor. Let me show you what this looks like in action. Here, Brandon, a contributor, commented on my project, and we've sent a very nice welcome message with some link to contributing guidelines, all automatically. But I want to take this a step further. Let me show you a workflow that'll help triage issues and reduce duplicate issues. First, again, we take the issues event. We ensure we're dealing only with opened issues. And then I use an action that I've put privately inside my repository to add a triage label onto the issue. Finally, we'll use a Probot application to detect and provide duplicate issues. If you haven't heard of Probot, the Probot project is an easy tool to build bots that respond to events on GitHub. A few weeks ago, we worked with the maintainers of Probot to make Probot apps compatible with GitHub Actions. So there are Probot apps that track work in progress, handle to-dos, close stale issues, set reminders, and many more. There are hundreds of these bot applications, and now they can work with GitHub Actions. So it's really exciting. We've set up our issue triage and duplicate issue Probot, all automatically running in GitHub Actions. Now let's show you what it looks like in action. An issue comes in. We label it with the triage label. and then the Probot app runs, finds the duplicate issues in my repository, and posts it to the issue. Now, I think GitHub Actions is an amazing way to deploy your application as well. Regardless of what cloud provider you use or service, you can use open source actions to build and deploy your application in a few simple steps. For this example, I've built an octa-quote generator app, and I'd like to deploy it using Zeit. Zeit helps power global serverless deployments. They make it tremendously easy to take a Node.js application or a Docker container and deploy it globally in a few simple steps. That's perfect for what I need to do, so I'm going to use Zeit in my GitHub Actions workflow. First, we'll build the Docker image using the Docker command line tool. Then we'll filter pushes to only deploy from the master branch. We'll use Zeit's GitHub action to deploy Zeit, giving the token that we've already stored. And then finally, we'll give our new deployment the URL we want it to have using Zeit's alias command. And that's it. Now we have a complete continuous deployment workflow where I'll deploy to Zeit every time the master branch gets new commits. So I want to show you what this application looks like deployed to Zeit, but deploying to a single service is a little too obvious. Why would I not deploy both to Zeit and, say, another service like Heroku as well? Let's do a parallel deployment to both Zeit and Heroku at the same time. With both of these deployed, we'll be able to get deployed URLs for each service at the end of the workflow. Now, this works because with GitHub Actions, you can actually run any action in parallel, because actions are built as a resolution tree. You define what each action relies upon, up the stack, and that includes allowing parallel actions. We'll stop you from creating circular dependencies, but we'll support anything that we can deterministically execute. Up until this point, I've shown you the visual editor. But you can also edit the workflow completely in text. In this example, you'll see I have the workflow named My Workflow. We'll trigger this every time the on event happens. And we resolve actions 2 and 3 that rely on different actions. You'll see also that one example is an open source repository. The second example is a Docker registry. The third example is a private action inside my repository. So if the visual editor isn't your style, you can use your code editor of choice. OK, so when a push comes into master, we'll deploy to both Zeit and Heroku in parallel. But honestly, if we're going to deploy to 2 services, I think you can see where I'm going with this, why should we stop there? My octa-quote generator app needs to be highly available. So why would I not deploy to Zeit, Heroku, Amazon, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure all at the same time? We'll run each unique step for each cloud, so we're not forcing you into an abstraction that you don't like. And we'll end up with a deployment URL for each and every environment. Now, let me show you what this looks like sped up a bit. We kick off all of these deployments at the same time simply by pushing code to master. And GitHub Actions will deploy to all 5 of these cloud providers. This flow is using parallel actions, secrets, environment variables, open source actions, and the new deployments UI, all working together to deploy the site. The Actions tab will show that all these steps were successful, and I can visit my site on Zeit, Heroku, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. I showed you how you can deploy an NPM module, how you can use GitHub's API to help automate frequent activities on GitHub. And finally, you can deploy your application to multiple cloud providers at the same time using GitHub Actions. And each of these are just a few of the examples that we've come up with to show you the potential of Actions. We're so excited to see what you do with them. We've built a variety of GitHub Actions to work with tools like GCP, AWS, Zeit, Azure, our filtering action, GHX, and many more. Alongside the supported Probot applications, we have 450 available actions during beta. Tomorrow, we'll share some more stories and examples when we gave members of our community early access to GitHub Actions, and you can see what they've built with it. OK, let's recap. GitHub Actions is about giving developers the same power they have while writing software to the act of publishing that software. For an individual developer, that might mean automating some common tasks that you do each day. If you're a startup or a business using GitHub Actions, you can seamlessly connect all of the tools that you're using or create actions of your own. As an enterprise, you can roll out lifecycle processes that are repeatable, auditable, compliant, using the Business Cloud environment just by updating your workflow files. And as a partner in our ecosystem, you have a new way to connect with our users and offload the processing of tasks. If you've been waiting to build a developer tool, now is the time. GitHub Actions is the best way to bring a developer tool to our users. To sign up and gain access to GitHub Actions, simply go to github.com/features/actions. We'll be adding more people every day to try using GitHub Actions with your repositories. And we couldn't be more excited to see what you do with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle, Omoju, Sam, and Kathy. So, anyone have a favorite that they saw today? The Actions team is over here. So, you're not supposed to pick favorites when you have children and products, but I think today is at least my favorite universe I've been to. This is a good one. So, these ships together in aggregate represent some of the most significant updates we've had to the entire GitHub platform since the pull request. And I hope that you all see that and have some fun with it. We shipped GitHub Connect to break down the silos between open source and on-prem. We've shipped Actions to make it so that you can put your code to work for you in collaborative ways and do new and interesting workflows to get rid of a lot of the BS that we all have to put up with as developers. We're really excited to see what you do with this. Actions also, though, when we think about this, is really about your workflows, your day-to-day jobs, everything that you do when you wake up in the morning. We talk about GitHub as the first tab open, last tab closed for developers. We want this to be your home. So whether that be CI/CD, integrating with partners, or deploying to any of the major cloud services, Actions is for you. We want to see what you can do with it. Things that were not possible just yesterday are going to be possible tomorrow with all the software that we're writing together. Actions is the quintessential collaborative community effort. We have this amazing platform, but it's not going to become what it could be unless you all out there put some of the open source actions together. We want to see what you are going to do with this. This is going to be amazing. So we do it because of you. We do it because we wake up every day thinking about your workflows, your lives, the friction and pain that you have, and we want to solve that. So, as we come to a close this morning, I want to ask you, what does the future look like for you? What do you need to do to make your life better? How can we help you? How do the things that we announced today bring some closure to that? Among all the things that you saw today, we're going to be talking about these things in detail tomorrow as well. So what we'd love to do, we would love to see what you build next year. On stage next year, 2019, we'd love to see what you can do with Actions. So submit your code, open source it, hashtag with GitHub Universe and GitHub Actions, and we want to take a look and showcase them here next year. What are you going to build next? So thank you, everybody. Enjoy Universe.